Secretary Clinton, first of all, it's a pleasure to have you on Frankly Speaking.
Thank you so much.
Secretary Clinton, you come at a time when there are lots of challenges in this region, and I just want to take up some of the main points with you. Today, as you were here, and you were asked a lot of questions about terrorism, about Pakistan's role, and it's also interesting that the masterminds of 26/11 were actually charge-sheeted in Pakistan. But that doesn't amount to very much, Secretary Clinton, because the trial is yet to start. The real action has not happened. Americans have died in 26/11, people from all nationalities. Are you concerned that the trial, the real punishment, hasn't really started at all?
Well, of course, I am concerned if there is not a trial and if there is not justice for those who planned the attacks of 26/11. I do have some understanding of how difficult these cases are because, as you know, we are still holding people that we haven't tried who we believe were involved with the 9/11 attacks.
Yes.
So what I'm looking for is a commitment and one that is carried through. The timing I'm understanding of, but there must be an eventual reckoning of justice.
Yes. So you would say that there must be a trial, that Pakistan must have a trial?
I believe that there has to be justice, that there has to be a full vetting and thorough analysis of what happened and who was behind it, just as I think with any terrorist attack.
Absolutely.
I think what countries are now understanding, wherever they're located, is that terrorism anywhere is a threat everywhere. And I hope that we will see the eventual full cooperation of every government against these non-state actors who train and equip the terrorists who wreak havoc. As you know, in this area, there's been terrorism in nearly every country. And therefore, there should be a joint effort and sharing of intelligence, sharing of counterterrorism techniques, law enforcement against this common threat.
Yes, absolutely. I think your reference to non-state actors takes me to my next question. Secretary Clinton, you've also been asked questions about the Lashkar-e-Toiba, the Jaish-e-Mohammed. These are organizations which have, for a long period of time, believed in bleeding India through 1,000 cuts. Would you put pressure? I know you've said that your focus is Indo-US relations and not Pakistan-India relations. But you have that influence over Pakistan. Would you use some of your influence or offices, or would you advise the government of Pakistan to be seen to be acting against groups like the Lashkar-e-Toiba and the Jaish-e-Mohammed, which eventually don't just target India, they target the world?
Well, we have in our dialogue with Pakistan over the last 6 months been very clear that we think it's imperative that Pakistan go after all the terrorist groups because if for no other reason, any one of them is actually a threat to Pakistan. Because even if they were at one time focused elsewhere, now they are part of a criminal terrorist syndicate. They reinforce one another, they plan together, they give safe haven to one another, and therefore no terrorist group can be left alone or forgotten about. Every one of them must be the target of intense law enforcement and justice efforts.
You have focused on, you've spoken of it in Congress and Senate and global forums. Secretary Clinton, would you at any point of time, your administration, consider linking the large amounts of military, civilian, other aid that you're giving Pakistan to tangible action against terrorism, against these terror groups, so that there's some visible sign which also assures countries like India, which are also your partners at a global level, that Pakistan is acting not just in one area, but also towards these groups?
Well, as you say, I mean, I'm very proud to be in India to deepen and strengthen our relationship. But I do want you and I want your viewers to know that we are always stressing the importance of counterterrorism efforts in every country that we do anything with, including aid programs.
Right. There is also concern about AFPAC. When there were visits some time back, there were worries that India is being clubbed with the AFPAC countries. But also there is, at the same time, my question to you would be, Secretary Clinton, would you see India's role anywhere as a major regional power?
Absolutely.
In the problems in the AFPAC region? Could you elaborate on those, please?
Well, I consider India a not just regional but global power. I said that in a speech that I gave last week in Washington. I think India has a tremendous opportunity to work to resolve problems regionally and to work with other nations, including the United States, on some of the global challenges we face. Now, how India decides to do that is up to India. India is a sovereign nation, a democracy. India has to make the decisions that are right for her. But certainly trying to bring some understanding, which India has, to the table in dealing with the problems in Afghanistan and the extremist threats in Pakistan would be very helpful. And I think that the cooperation that we're building between the United States and India, that I'm very personally committed to, on counterterrorism, on intelligence sharing, on everything that we can do to help protect India from terrorism and to enlist India's help in our fight against the extremists in Afghanistan and in support of what Pakistan is now doing, will be very welcome and important.
And you see any resistance to that from say, Pakistan? Would you be worried of any resistance to that from Pakistan?
Well, I must say that over the last 6 months, we have seen an evolving attitude in Pakistan. The Army's efforts that are ongoing now in Swat and Banir and elsewhere have only recently begun, but they have been adjudged by our military leaders as being sincere, effective, and committed. So I think that there's an attitude within Pakistan today, not just at the governmental levels, but within the society, that the terrorists pose a threat to them, that you cannot unleash terrorism or turn a blind eye to it anywhere any longer, and that's what I'm encouraged by.
Recently, in fact, just 3 days back, 2 days back, in fact, Secretary Clinton, there were meetings between the Indian and Pakistani Prime Minister Sharm el-Sheikh in Egypt, and the general consensus was that India has shown great maturity by delinking action against terror from talks, though there was internal criticism in India about how wise a thing this is to do. You should have a more hardline approach. Having said that, would you also believe that even though these two matters are delinked, that Pakistan should not stop the continued efforts that it needs to take as actively as it was telling the world in December or January about fighting against these terror groups?
Absolutely. I think that should be a given. I think it should be expected. And as I say, I think I see some very positive steps in that direction. But India is a great country. It is a country that is mature and is able to make decisions for herself. It is also a very powerful country with an enormous military capacity if necessary. But what I see the government of India doing is to try to be able to find the space to focus on what you and I were talking about, which is eradication of poverty, increasing educational opportunities, improved health outcomes, more jobs, better agricultural productivity. The bread and butter issues that will enable India to not only grow, but broadly spread the prosperity that is being developed. So I have a great deal of admiration for the difficult decisions that the Indian government is trying to make.
Secretary Clinton, on Kashmir, there has been a history of long conflict and difference between India and Pakistan on it. India believes it's a bilateral issue, and from what I heard you earlier in the day today, you've always said we don't want to get into India-Pakistan issues at all, but Pakistan would like to see the issue internationalized. It's been trying to internationalize the issue over a long period of time. Do you see, if I were to ask you, Secretary, do you see any role as a broker at all, directly, indirectly, for America on this issue between India and Pakistan so that the matter can be settled once and for all? Where do you stand on it?
Well, the decision has to be between India and Pakistan, and of course, taking into account the feelings of the people of Kashmir. I think there is no resolution without India and Pakistan deciding what is in the best interests of the future. So our role is not to be involved other than to support the process that India and Pakistan may decide to enter into.